Shout out to our sponsors at IconBet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. IconBet, made by the players, for the players. Ion Icon is proudly supported by Icon Nation and the Icon community. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ion Icon. This is the episode where we bring you the weekly news of everything going on in the Icon ecosystem and a smidge about everything in the crypto space. Back with me, and I'm excited to have him back. Icongrapher, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Lots of stuff happening. In fact, woke up and Pedro put out this fantastic tweet thread of, all the different things happening. And I thought that was great, and we need more of it. I see a lot of that happening in other ecosystems. It was great to see more of that. Anyone listening, if you feel you can do stuff like that, put it out. It's a great reminder of so much being built on Icon. We seem to get swept up in all the utter nonsense, yet don't focus on how much is actually being built. Yeah, sorry, a little rant there, but yeah, I'm doing good, man. That tweet really perked me up.
Yeah, it's almost like we have to start separating, kind of the upcoming releases and things like that into like tiers because we have, I'd say like in tier one and ranking them based on, the overall kind of impact on the ecosystem as a whole. It's like, we've got Icon 2.0 coming out, BTP coming out, ICE coming out. Those are all, even just one on its own is kind of, it would be a proof of news and really shake things up as far as the ecosystem is concerned. And we got basically three of them coming within the next few months here. And then, tier two, we've got a number of, and I don't want to necessarily start, off the top of my head putting them in, but, we have, we have a handful of DeFi products that are going to be coming online, whether it's, balance is already there, OMM any minute now. Equality coming out at some point later in the year. Optimus also coming out at some point. So there, we've got another, a lot of potential yield generating protocols, and then even beyond that, we have Craft, which should be coming around the corner. Project Nebula is coming out in less than a month now. Epicx, which we'll talk about a little bit later, they're getting close to having a full launch. So, the next couple of months will just be full of all sorts of stuff going on, all sorts of things to try out and play around with, and really continue growing the ecosystem. So, it's hard to get a read on the markets right now. Everything just seems to be kind of ranging back and forth, bouncing up and down. Pretty boring. At least it kind of, I don't mind stability at this point in time, especially as far as kind of monitoring kind of what's going on unbalanced, and gives people a chance to accumulate a bit more and things like that. And again, with everything, a lot of good positive developments coming up soon, especially things that impact tokenomics. I don't mind. It's not the end of the world for price to be down a little bit. We're still way higher than we were around this time last year. Obviously, a bit lower than what we had hit earlier this year, but that's kind of how things go, and you can't really expect everything to continually just go up consistently. So, yeah, it's a little bit boring, but hey, it's summer, so at least where I'm at. So weather's getting nicer. Go outside a bit more. Don't look as much in the charts, and things will kind of take care of themselves. I would hope.
Yeah, agree. Ranging is good. Ranging is good. Um, Getting back a bit of stability. It just can't keep skyrocketing and then nosediving. It's not good for the markets, and it's not good for my heart either. So,
Yeah.
um, cool.
And it gives us a chance to kind of focus on other things, getting into more discussions about positive impacts of BTP and other stuff. Rhizome has a few projects cooking in the fire. The DAO, which hopefully everyone's listened to that interview with Fez and Brian that came out earlier this week. I've got I'm working on I'm part of the equality team. I've also got a NFT project that I'm kind of playing around with that is building a good amount of community support, which is nice to see. And so, it kind of gives us, we don't, it's even the most focused of individuals, when the price is moving a lot, it's hard to not start staring at charts just because they do get interesting. But when they're not interesting, it does allow the community as a whole to focus on ideally more productive things, sometimes less productive things. But I think the community as a whole really getting into the meat of the actual DApps and other community initiatives that are coming online here.
Yep. So let's dive in. Agree. First thing, a surprise announcement. I feel it was a surprise announcement because if you recall, we in one of the earlier community sessions, which by the way is another highlight. If you're listening and you didn't realize, we have someone from the foundation or PREP teams every week jumping on live on Twitter and engaging with the community. So yeah, that's another. I feel it's a great exercise, and thank you to everyone that keeps coming on, listening, and to the PREPs and Foundation for taking the time to engage with the community. But I digress. One of the points I called out there was, I asked Scott, oh, the balanced airdrop, what do you think? Was it as successful as originally planned? And he did call out and say, no, thought there would be far more of an uptake. However, in the background, I actually, on the day of the announcement, I messaged Scott going, in reflection, I gave an example of how Luna is doing. They've got a series of airdrops, and people, they've got two live protocols, and both of them have airdrops. Airdrops is better. And that it would be cool for us to keep building on that. Don't look at one. If the uptake was decent, once we have a few of our key protocols participating and enabling a similar program, we could probably generate far more interest because all of a sudden there's 5 airdrops to claim versus 1 on the Icon ecosystem. It was hilarious because as soon as I sent him that an hour later, I saw all these posts about the OMM airdrop. I was like, oh, fantastic. This is great. And then I retracted my message to Scott because I felt like I came off like a clown. But that is the news. So another protocol joins the airdrop program. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I don't think this was a huge surprise. I think it was certainly a nice surprise to see it, but I think it's something a lot of people kind of assumed was going to happen. I'm trying to remember. I feel like there were even hints at it, if not explicit statements about it in the past. I think when the airdrop was first announced, it was kind of everyone got excited, and then they said, well, there's going to be multiple airdrops. So I think a lot of people did the math and said, okay, well, Balance is doing one, then OMM's probably going to do one as well. And so here we are. And there's obviously, as soon as it got announced, there were a lot of questions as far as who's eligible, how it works, all that stuff. And basically, it's if if you have a wallet or if you're in a position where you're currently receiving the balanced airdrop BALN on a weekly basis, then you will also receive OMM in that same wallet. So what that means is, if you have SICX parked on balance right now, either because it's collateralized or for any other reason, you custom the fact that it is not receiving an airdrop, probably because it's already making balanced via just utilizing the platform. So for that same reason, OMM is only going to wallets that are staking ICX as part of the governance process. If I think there's a lot of people who were hoping that maybe their SICX would be getting it, but it seems like it's going to be limited to basically the exact same situation that Balance is currently getting. So, and I think, it's one of those things where people get disappointed when the ICX they hold in whatever form they hold it, whether it's, maybe it's on Binance or on, or an SICX or whatever it might be, isn't able to earn airdrops. But at the end of the day, an airdrop only provides you with a very small fractional amount of the token being airdropped. If you really want that token, whether it's Balance or OMM or potentially one of the other tokens that's doing an airdrop, the best way to get it and get a lot of it is to use the actual protocols. So for those who are kind of upset or feel disappointed by the airdrop and not getting enough, if you really want the token, you should go utilize the protocol. And I understand that, maybe you don't feel comfortable, there's too much risk or whatever. But at the end of the day, that's a trade-off. You have to decide whether or not, how much you want that token. Everyone obviously loves free money and wants more of it as they can get. But at the same time, you also have to recognize that there are limitations on that. And there's always so much of free stuff that can really go around before you have to start putting a little bit of your own neck on the line, so to speak, as far as utilizing Balance, which it does carry some risks as far as taking out loans and impermanent loss and other things like that. That hopefully you're firmly aware of by now. But just something to consider. Again, we'll potentially get more details, but I think for the most part, if they pretty much indicated it's going to be almost exactly as the balanced airdrop works. So if you've done that before, then you know what it'll be like. You know what the OMM experience will be like.
Yeah, look, I think it's a good call out. I see always people instantly asking that. Again, remember your asset is already being used in the protocol, and this is why it's not qualifying for the airdrop. And ultimately, if you have SICX, for example, it means you're using the balance protocol. It is actually more beneficial for us to have a way of attracting new users because the airdrop, oh, people, if you're thinking in your head, oh, this is creating, people are just dumping. No, the airdrop is not giving you that much to dump and have any impact on the damn market. But what it is giving is people who would not even have dabbled in the protocol, they're going, ooh, yay, free money. And they're coming and seeing the protocol, and then hopefully out of the 50 people, five start playing with the protocol. Mission accomplished. It creates more value for, well, we get more users and the protocol, and you who's actually using it and getting the balanced tokens far more than an airdrop would give you. It is instantly creating more value because we need users. More users will give the token a bit more value, etc., etc. So that is the norm, and this is the norm in other ecosystems as well. And I'm sorry to keep mentioning it, but I did say it earlier. So Luna has the same thing where they have the airdrops, etc. And but however, if the Luna token is locked in the Anchor protocol, it doesn't qualify for the airdrops versus actual just staking normally. So it's the same system at play here. So people don't feel shafted or anything like that. It is just the nature of it. So on top of that, you may be thinking, oh, but for the ICE chain, they're going to do that. Yes, because it's fundamentally different. It is a side chain that is being built out, and they want to ensure that all iconists who are staking and using protocols on the Icon ecosystem are rewarded and given what they should be given. So they're two very different pieces, and not to be confused. But overall, it's great. Love to see this. It's just such a great incentive, and I'm hoping Kraft and a few others do that. I don't know this. I'm just hoping. I have no inside information, but you can imagine all of a sudden when we have the great tweet that Pedro put out, and we have all these dApps on, and there's some kind of airdrop program where you literally have to spend your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday going through all the protocols, seeing what you qualify for. What a great little marketing incentive that puts into play as well. So yeah, really excited about this.
Yeah, we still don't have an exact launch date on OM. I mean, it sounds like it's imminent. Imminent could be, a week or two. It could be another few weeks. Hopefully more the former. But as soon as that happens, 1 week later is when the first of the airdrops will occur.
Yep. Actually, to call out, this is probably one of the biggest questions every time on the Iron Icon YouTube channel. When's the airdrop? I haven't got around to answering them because I don't know, but what we do know is it will qualify, and it just, I'm guessing, like balance, it'll be a one week after launch. So I don't see why it would be any different. So once we have a date, that's when the airdrop will start. So I don't have any inside, and me or Icongraph or any of us don't have any inside details on a particular date. What we do know is the date is being driven by our partners that are on the on ramp and off ramp partners. Given the team have come out and expressed what has transpired in the past, so I'm very keen to make sure that process is set up right and tested thoroughly before we rush and launch, and so is the team. So that's probably what's just driving this unknown date. The second we have that, they'll probably announce it excitedly. But yeah.
The other DeFi protocol, which is balanced. Some fun, first, I guess on the marketing front, there was some, balances getting more exposure out there. There was articles featured on Yahoo Finance, BN Crypto, which is a crypto news website, Blockchain Wire, similarly, Product Hunt as well. So, they're getting information out there. It's becoming hopefully, more well known. A lot of it was relating to, whether it was the governance vote or the fee distribution, kind of stuff like that that's been happening more recently. And on that note, I'm sure everyone who's listening is aware of this, but the first governance vote on chain was held for the balanced platform, basically to vote whether or not to distribute the fee rewards. I'm sorry, the rewards from fees to those who were staking balanced. It's a bit more than $1 million worth of fees divided into Balance USD, Balance tokens, and SICX. Balance USD being the vast majority of that. 60%, according to the vote, would go to balanced stakers. The other 40% would go into a DAO fund, which is used for ongoing development of the protocol. And kind of as you would expect, it fell just under 100%. I think it was 99.15 or something along those lines. The vote passed, and today the initial wave of fees were dished out. This is basically all the fees that were collected in the last 60 days ever since the protocol launched. So obviously going to be a high amount relative to what they'll be on a daily basis moving forward. But nonetheless, certainly not a nice milestone. Certainly nice to get a nice, kind of wake up and see a bit of a payday of sorts if you've been staking for a long time, and just another nice moment in the balanced history.
Yeah, look, it's finally happened. Everyone's when fees, when fees, when fees. There's your fees. So yeah, look, it's great and so quickly. Um, I'm glad to see money going into the treasury, and I'm excited to see now new proposals kick off. I think I will always keep saying this. I've been quite vocal. It's excited to have fees and things like that, but if you want these fees to be substantial and or lasting, we need to, as holders, constantly think about that treasury and how much is in there, and ensure that that treasury can sustain a bear market. Look, I don't mean to go from good news to doom and gloom, but it is important, and it's something that's getting a lot of screen time across various protocols in the crypto space. That one, the treasuries, is it right so early in the game for us to be paying out fees to token holders versus or should they be saving it in the treasury and once the protocol is extremely established? But that discussion is for another day. It's great to see this is something Balance promised, and it is a promise that has been delivered extremely quickly, and so smooth. I woke up. I didn't even realize I woke up to a series of tweets. I was like, "Ooh, let me go check Balance." So great accomplishment. Kudos to the team. I know personally the team have been relentless. They haven't stopped working since launch. It's just constant. You can't imagine the hours they're putting in. So thank you for all the hard work that they have done, and for us all to reap the rewards.
And a little bit after the rewards came out, the price of balance tokens started going up. I think it started the day in the 170s. I just checked it a little bit ago. It's like $2.06 right now. So that could just be a random thing. People could do what I did and took all their BNUSD and that they got from their rewards and just bought more balanced or balanced token. So maybe it's I think we've seen a lot of downward pressure on the price just because a lot of people I presume have been earning balance and then selling it as in order to take their yield in cash, which is totally fine. But now there's kind of more potential. And again, this is just one day of this, and it could be a totally random thing, but it also wouldn't surprise me if this was the case. But maybe now that there's people getting capital on a daily, it is a daily reward. Do I have that right, Fez, or is it?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay, I
Yes.
know it. I think at one point they talked about weekly. So assuming it is daily, everyone waking up with a bit of money, a bit of BNUSD in their wallet every day. I could see them, those who are bullish on it, which I think there are a lot of, just using that to just buy up more balanced, and knowing and believing that the ecosystem will continue to grow, especially with BTP and a lot more assets flowing through there. So I think a lot of people were disappointed in the level of and the amount of fees. And I saw some grumbling that they would have been better off selling their balance or whatever, which is probably true if you're looking at things in a 60-day window. But if you're looking at things in a 1 to 5 to 10 year window, and seeing how much the protocol might be able to grow and how much money might end up flowing through there, there's a chance that the fees that came out today could be tiny to compare to kind of what there could be in the future. So that's why it could be advantageous for people to be early balance holders and accumulate a lot of those tokens while the inflation is still high, and kind of as the supply starts to dwindle, it'll be nice to it'll be potentially nice to hold those tokens, assuming the platform develops as we all hope it will. Obviously, there's chances. It's crypto, so there's chances that a million different things could happen and go wrong. But I think things are moving in the right direction, and with BTP on the way, it opens up a whole new door of possibilities. So, I think people who have a longer term vision will end up doing pretty well. I think if you're valuing things in 60-day blocks, you're potentially not going to make it.
Yeah, agree. You got to think long term, and I think Scott mentioned this in one of the community chats, and this is where it starts to get interesting. If you're a balance holder, it's not about. I see people complaining about price, etc., but value has to be derived, and the way value is via fees, because this is what it's generating and giving the balance token value. That's why you want to hold it, and obviously the governance powers. And one thing Scott mentioned was when the price drops, obviously less new loans are created. And remember, one of the biggest fee aggregators is that 1% initiation fee. So if that slows down, obviously the amount of fees protocol gathers drops as well. So these are some of the challenges at play. But all of a sudden, once you start getting more assets on there, like they've frequently talked about with BTC, ETH, etc., it changes the dynamic a little bit. So all of a sudden, there's more use cases, and each of these assets are generating fees rather than just the one asset. So yeah, don't think short term. Really think big picture here. And obviously, we'll keep highlighting this now. BTP, once BTP comes into the equation, say you get ETH or actual BTC as collateral types, will bring a lot more stability to the protocol, and that reduce that fear of the price drops, etc. So the initiation fees and things like that will be much more consistent. So and we can keep talking here hypothetically, but just that gives you a bit of a picture there. Yeah.
Next topic is for those who are following Epicx, Epicx, which is a project we've been talking about for a good amount of time now. I think our first interviews was with Nblaze, who's the main kind of, I guess, the head of the project. They announced they are in open beta on their price predictions game, which is just one of the 4 games that they're offering. And so initially it was a closed beta to a select group of users, myself included. So I had a chance to kind of play around with it and make a few predictions, which did not end well. But I did earn some EPX tokens as a result, so at least there's that. But they've now announced that it is open to everyone. So if you want to go in there and play around and make some predictions and see if you can get it right and earn some ICX and some EPX, you are more than welcome to do that. Again, it's still beta, so there could be issues that pop up. And if you're not in the Telegram chat for Epicx already, be sure to hop in there. If you see anything that isn't working like you think it should, you can flag that. And Blaze is pretty responsive at both taking in feedback and then also communicating with the developers and getting stuff fixed fairly quickly. So that's certainly nice to see. And my understanding is they will be kind of gradually unveiling the other games via beta once they have a chance to, they want to take a chance on improving one game at a time as much as possible before trying to open up the next one. That way they don't have to deal with trying to, address bugs in 4 different games at one point in time. So, it was certainly exciting to see that launch. I'm enjoying playing around with it. Looking forward to seeing their other games start to open up as well. And like I said, if you haven't had a chance to play around with it, I definitely encourage you to do so.
Yeah, great one. Great to see out of beta. Again, I feel some stuff flies under the radar. Nblaze has been doing insane work in the background, engaging the community, and just a call out here, Nblaze came on, gave the announcement, shared a little bit of the delay and what transpired, and even though there was a delay, he found a way to engage and build hype with the community just via spontaneous Twitter games and things like that, which I don't feel personally enough credit was given there for how he handled that situation and kept the community energized and excited. So on top of that, the beta was successful. A lot of great feedback came through, and great to see it in open beta. And this, again, is not one dApp. There's quite 4 games, the protocol brings to the table. So that's good news. Do you want to, Icongrapher, now spend a little bit of time? I know I did a quick news summary last week, and I touched on your BTP article, and I encouraged everyone to read it because I read it and learned a ton from it. However, I know I still had a few questions that I was. You and me were having a talk before the show, and I've had many aha moments since our talk. But I thought, do you want to spend some time talking about how you've explored BTP? I know we've done a big community session as well, which was extremely insightful, but that community session was very much a variety of questions being thrown, getting answered. I feel your article was a really focus about that value accrual and why it is so beneficial to the Icon ecosystem. And I thought, throw it to you. Why don't you break it down and really, I really want you to call out the conversation, that breakdown we had earlier that gave me the aha moment of why it's so valuable to the Icon ecosystem. Apart from
Yeah,
connecting all the chains, yeah, but the
right.
fundamentals, that's what really brings it out. Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious benefit on the surface of BTP is it can bring a lot more volume and traffic and interest from other blockchains onto Icon and onto our various dApps that, all the ones we mentioned earlier that are coming out or already out. So obviously, if you're a balance holder, bringing a lot more activity into balance is a good thing. If you're a future OM holder, bringing a lot more, activity into OM is a good thing, and that applies to, basically every dApp we have, whether it's IconBet, whether it's Craft, whether it's X or any of the other ones. The more the fact that people will be interested in cross chain. There's already a lot of interest out there for it, as we've seen, particularly with Ethereum and layer twos and everything like that, particularly with the hype around Polkadot and Cosmos and things like that. So just as soon as people realize, oh, we can use this icon thing to quickly hop from one chain to another, that itself is going to raise Icon's profile, and people are going to start utilizing, they're going to start flowing into our community. So that's obviously a good thing. But beyond that is, the interesting model that they had set up as far as the tokenomics. I guess you could call it that as far as BTP is concerned. And so, in order, say I'm on Binance Smart Chain, which is one of the chains that we confirmed and is currently listed on GitHub as one that is being worked on to build the smart contract for BTP. So we know that's going to be part of the BTP ecosystem. Say I'm on Binance Smart Chain, I want to move, I don't know, let's say BNB to Icon for whatever potential whatever potential reason. In order to do that, say I move 100 BNB, there is a 0.2% fee in order to do that. Now, this is, I think, pretty similar to what you would pay just to make a trade on Binance or any other exchange. And so it shouldn't be, it's not going to be super shocking for people to see a fee to utilize the service. I think 0.2% is fairly modest and won't really get noticed a whole lot. And so what it does is it takes that 0.2% of that 100 BNB, which is getting moved, and it sticks it into what is called it's basically an auction contract. And so what happens is people who hold ICX will have a opportunity to take all the funds that are being put into that auction contract through all the transfers that are happening via BTP, which we hope and assume will be many. It is putting all those different assets into that contract, and it is allowing people to use ICX and only ICX to buy those at a discount. So they're currently, Scott on the community call, and if you haven't listened to that chat yet, I encourage you to do so, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about it here in a little bit. He basically said, as it is right now, it's set up as a kind of traditional auction of just highest bid ends up winning. He's having potential thoughts of changing that to where we just rely on an oracle to set an initial base price, and the people would be able to buy it at like a 10% discount or something like that. So it's pretty straightforward. Hey, Ethereum's trading for $2,000. I can buy it for 1,800, and then obviously immediately flip it for that $200 profit or whatever it would be. And they just need they can only do that with ICX. So, we've created an immediate demand mechanism for ICX because it is a vehicle for getting other assets at a discount and being able to utilize for profit. So ICX basically becomes, in like a very simplified way, a immediate profit generating asset. And so you can understand why that would be, a really bullish thing for your token to be, because a lot of people will want to buy it if they know they can utilize it in order to turn a very quick profit. Now, it's likely that a lot of these will be bots and things like that. But I think if you're, obviously, I think we would all enjoy the opportunity to buy discounted assets to sell them. But at the same time, even if bots are doing all the work, that's still a lot of ICX potentially being bought on a daily basis. And so here's the, so say that Ethereum gets bought for $1,800. You now have $800 worth of ICX. Where does it go? If the CPS is not full, it goes into the CPS. If the CPS is full, it gets burned. So, anytime I think people hear burning of tokens, they get really excited because it means there's less on the market. And this is basically a simple, I won't say simple, but it's a traditional arbitrage mechanism, right? Buying something for one price and selling it for a higher price in order to capture profit. Usually that's, it could be just a couple percentage points, but if you do it enough, the volume, you make a lot of money. Problem is though, is usually in those arbitrage situations, it just stays in the market, right? So okay, maybe it'll get bought for the arbitrage, it gets sold, and then it gets dumped, it gets dumped on the market or whatever. So it just kind of creates a circle. So it doesn't, maybe impact price a little bit, but it doesn't do a whole lot. Obviously, in this case though, the ICO that is utilized to buy the asset, it doesn't get sold again. It just literally just it gets burned, it gets vanished, whatever you want to say. So it's not that it's going in a circle and just getting rebought until rebought and sold. Instead, in order to keep buying these assets at a cheap, people have to keep buying and buying and buying ICX. So there's obviously good news there.
So
And just to give, I just mentioned 100. Go ahead, Fez.
no, I just want to pause there because I think we're all excited about BTP and there's all this stuff. And, one of the excellent parts about BTP has been that once a chain is connected, they can link directly to each other, right? So if anyone's sitting there and going, well, how's this occurring value for Icon? And what this auctioning system is actually doing is creating we know when transactions hit a certain limit, it will become deflationary. But BTP will get us deflationary extremely quickly because all of a sudden what is happening is there's only one thing happening: buy pressure on ICX through this circle. And this is what I love about this. And this is what actually Icongrapher has highlighted to me, because I wasn't privy to this. I didn't take this away in my initial understanding, because what is going to keep happening is constantly, if you can get ETH at a 10% discount, bots will be made that automatically utilize this arbitrage opportunity and scoop it up. Yeah, it may not be beneficial right now for the everyday person like you and me who won't be quick enough to pick up these cheaper, cryptocurrencies that are using the BTP ecosystem. But as an icon holder, holding ICX, what starts to happen is all of a sudden, apart from staking, apart from utility, we have people rushing to these exchanges to pick up ICX so that they can pick up cheap Ethereum and BTC and various other chains, native tokens. And every time they purchase this via this mechanism, that ICX is going into CPS. Nowhere else. It is going into CPS. And when CPS hits that 1 million mark, it's being burnt instantly. So this is one thing, again, I keep calling out. I didn't realize it. And it is actually really big news. It changes the dynamic of everything. It's changed my view on a lot of things as well. So this is a game changer. And if for a moment the thought process of anyone listening is, oh, but who's going to create these bots? We already have bots like this created that work to work balanced, and as more protocols keep coming online, we'll probably have within the Icon community itself quite a lot of the community create these components. And once people see that, holy crap, there's 10%, 15%, or so much percent to be made instantly, it will just bring people to Icon indirectly because they will purchase ICX to utilize this arbitrage opportunity. Sorry, Icongraph, I know you bought, but I really wanted to bring home that I think this is a huge point that I had missed, and I hope others had missed, so that I'm not the real dumb person. But yeah, look, good call out, man. I appreciate you taking the time to explain this to me and the entire community. Keep going
Well, I
where you
think
were.
I think too, it's there's almost a different circle occurring, right? Where it's okay, I use my ICX to buy discounted ETH. The ICX gets burned, but now I have ETH, but I have more, I basically made a $200 profit. I'll just take that ETH, buy more ICX. So I'm dumping the ETH, buying ICX, and then just doing it again, right? And
Yeah.
so, assuming there's a flow of Ethereum coming into the auction contract because people are moving Ethereum around, you can just envision this bot circle of just buy ICX, dump ETH, buy ICX, or and in the middle of that is ICX burned, dump ETH for ICX, buying ICX, inflation gets burned. You know what I mean? So you can kind of see how that now, the example I used one, 100 BNB, which is, I don't know what BNB is trading at, a couple $100, something like that. So 20, that's 20K, 2.2% of that would be, I don't know, $40, something like that. So it's a small transaction, but so it's kind of like, okay, how much money is going to flow through BTP at a given point in time? Is it going to be a little bit? Is it going to be a lot? Like, what is the current, amount of interchain interest that is out there? And so the, one of the chains that I looked at as far as a comparison is concerned is called Ren. You've probably seen, maybe on exchange or something like that, or in CoinMarketCap, something called Ren BTC. And basically, what it is, it's a wrapped version of BTC that lives on Ethereum. I don't know if it's necessarily the most popular way to wrap assets, but I assume it's definitely up there if it is not the most popular. Right now, it only exists on 3 to 4 basically chains. It's Ethereum being the main one. And when I was doing the kind of the research on this article, Ren was doing about the Ren contracts and the Ren ecosystem. The amount of money flowing through it on a given day was about $20 million. Sometimes it went lower, sometimes it went higher, but over the little like kind of mini sample period I looked at, that was generally kind of where we were. Obviously, it's had days, kind of during the boom we had a couple months ago where it was way higher, and then obviously, when it first started, it was way lower. But that's about where we are. So, for the kind of the sake of things now, like kind of let's use that as a point of comparison. Um, so that's $20 million. So if we had something similar, and again, BTP is going to be operating on many more than just 4 chains. Scott has basically said he wants to be the most interconnected chain out of all of them by the end of the year. And we're already working with, we're working with Polkadot, we're working with Near, we're working with Binance Smart Chain, we're working with Harmony. And that's, I assume at some point Ethereum will be official. It sounds like there's more in the works in the background, so we're certainly going to have plenty. But let's say we did have $20 million. That means, based on that 0.2% percentage, that's $40,000 that's collected in fees. That means all those, and for the sake of the math here, let's pretend that ICX is at $1. And that's obviously we want to be higher. I think ICX is going to be higher than the crypto ecosystem as a whole is probably be higher. But for the sake of keeping the math simple, we'll say ICX is worth $1. So that means about 40,000 in fees would be collected, which means about 40,000 ICX will be burned per day. Now, if we take the 10% discount, it'll be 10% less than that. But let's just say 40,000 ish for the sake of our math here. So if BTP comes along and it's exactly as successful as Ren is, which I think Ren would say it's a success, but I think the scope of what BTP can do is so much greater. But let's say it's at $20 million of just money moving around over BTP per day. That means 40,000 ICX is burned per day. So that means it means 2 things. Assuming the CDS is full, and which it shouldn't take that long to fill it up, even at 40,000 per day, that's about a month. Beyond that, so not only does 4,000 ICX get burned, but there's also potentially $40,000 worth of buying pressure on the market. Now, I think one of the things that we all strive toward and have hoped for ever is that you eventually get to, everyone's concerned about the inflation in ICX. I think there's been a lot of discussion about it. but it is something that people kind of recognize as, it certainly isn't helpful for price. I think it's helpful for growing the ecosystem, but if there's a way to kind of make it less and less inflationary over time, and to the point where you're bringing potentially more ICX is getting burned via transaction fees or other activity, as opposed to the amount that's being created every day, then you're going to have a really good economic model where, as the supply gets lower and lower, and ideally as demand goes up, obviously that does good things to price. So, in order to become deflationary, I did the math. As things currently stand, and under the assumptions that I've been kind of describing as far as ICX being a dollar and everything like that, BTP basically needs to do about $60 million worth of volume per day as far as money, and that's not even, that's literally money moving from one chain to the other. That's just money flowing around. $60 million a day needs to happen. Now the question is, okay, and if we hit that point, it means that we're burning enough ICX and through the burn mechanism we're burning per day than we're generating via inflation. And so we create about 126,000 ICX per day, and that would burn about 126,000 ICX a day. Not to mention 126,000 ICX of buy pressure every day as well. So 60 million does sound like a lot. For as far as a little perspective is concerned, if you look at the ICX volume, so again, this isn't necessarily ICX bought and sold. This is actually ICX moving around on the ICX blockchain. How much ICX gets moved on a given moment on Icon, within Icon, whether it's someone moving money from their wallet to balanced, or sending money to a friend, whatever it might be, is about $10 million. So that's just without any interconnectivity or anything like that. That's how much is just happening on Icon alone, 10 million. So that's half of kind of what Ren was at. It's 1/6 of what we need to hit on BTP in order to be deflationary. Now, that same metric, as far as money moving around, if you look at Ethereum, it's been hovering in the 10 billion-ish range. Again, that fluctuates day to day, but that's kind of like where it's generally been. I think that number hit something like 34 billion during the peak of the most recent kind of strong bull run we had a couple months ago. So obviously that's a big number. Now let's just say 1% of the money moving around Ethereum spilled over into BTP, because people wanted to move that 1% into Icon or Binance Smart Chain or whatever else it might be. 1% of 10 billion is 100 million. If we hit that point in time, based on the auction system, the tokenomics, all that other good stuff, we're burning about 200,000 ICX per day. And that is, about 74,000 more than we need to. And again, it's another 200,000 of buy pressure per day of ICX. So, I think it's the quickest mechanism we have to get to a deflationary status, than basically any other way. And for the sake of comparison, right now, the kind of I would say a potential problem, and I don't want to use the word problem necessarily, but the main obstacle to getting to a high to a deflationary point at this point in time without BTP is the fact that ICX fees are so cheap. And obviously that's a good thing, the transaction fees. Obviously that's a good thing because it makes it easier to move money around. People don't have to worry about gas fees being crazy like they are on Ethereum or anything like that. The downside is that it makes it very hard to burn ICX. Even with, bumping closer to 200,000 transactions per day on the network, at that rate, we're burning, 300 to 400 ICX in a given day, something like that. And so the numbers I just listed are, hundreds of times magnitude higher than what we're currently burning in ICX, based on our activity on chain. Now, I totally expect that activity on chain to increase over time, especially as we get more dApps, especially as we do get BTP. So I think that'll become more deflationary, but we need to become truly deflationary, that 126,000 ICX per day, we would need to have I believe in the teens of millions of transactions per day. So, for those who are kind of, I think everyone buys into crypto because they say, hey, this token's utility token. You need it in order to move money around the network, pay gas fees, whatever else it is. And hey, if all these institutions or all these people or the whole world buys into it, then there'll be enough transactions happening to where more gets burned per day than gets created. But the problem is, it just takes so many of those in order to get there, and it's going to take a long time in order to get that truly deflationary situation. So that's why BTP is such a game changer, is because it's almost a cheat code to get there in a really quick amount of time. And the product itself, everything I understand about it, everything I learn about it, the more I learn about it, this includes the call we had the other day. So you have that. Okay, we need to hit this amount of volume. We need to hit 60 million in order to be deflationary. How feasible is that? How likely is that? And the conversation we had with Scott, it was basically, it was a bit of a light bulb went off for me, because we have all these other kind of, there's not that many, but there are other interoperability protocols out there, promises. Polkadot is one, Cosmos is another one, and to the kind of the untrained eye, they all look kind of the same. Oh, they're just slapping interoperability label on there. They all basically do the same thing, but at the end of the day, they're ultimately different. Polkadot, Scott argued it wasn't truly interoperable, which I think is an argument that I definitely buy, because everything's at the end of the day kind of still tied together, and it's interoperable within itself, but it's not as much so to
Yeah.
other chains outside the kind of the Polkadot ecosystem. And even basically what was sounded like the competitive advantage of BTP is that it is very easy to deploy, for the most part, on other chains once the kind of the baseline smart contracts are written. So the heavy work is being done right now, whether it's with BSC, buying a smart chain, or Near, or Polkadot and others. But once kind of there's a base chain with the contracts written, Icon itself handles all the infrastructure required to actually run BTP. So at the end of the day, a chain that wants to adopt BTP, all it essentially really needs to do is press the easy button, deploy the smart contract, and it's essentially connected to BTP. It has to do maybe a little bit more, but it's not required to be like a node operator. It's not required to help run infrastructure. It's easy enough. It's so easy to the point where it's basically, it'd be ridiculous for a chain to not want to be part of it. And all it takes is for some person to deploy the smart contract in order to do that, and BTP is basically active. So it's a very much out of the box, easy to implement solution once we get to a certain point. And so that's why it's kind of understandable why Scott would want to be comfortable saying he wants Icon to be the most interconnected chain, just because once the momentum really picks up, it will be very easy to implement on other chains. And so when you realize that, and you realize how quickly it could ultimately grow, and the infrastructure could build out to all these other chains, you can start to see how 60 million in volume isn't necessarily that far-fetched, especially when you take into consideration that Ethereum, which is just one chain, I'll grant it's a large chain, can do 10 billion in volume a day, or can even do 34 billion in volume a day, like I mentioned during that high point. So that's kind of what we're looking at, and factoring that in with kind of what I mentioned as far as the tokenomics and the deflation, everything like that. It's almost, I sense a certain level of excitement, but I think there's still a lot in the community who don't necessarily understand the potential implications of BTP, and why it really is so bullish.
Yep, agree. I think that call out where one thing Scott said, remember, it's smart contracts, and so we don't need, for example, the foundations of each protocol to do anything. Essentially, someone can just build a smart contract on that protocol and deploy it as well. I feel that hit home for me as a point, because once certain contracts are written, if the chain has similar languages and things like that, it can just be then redeployed onto that chain. And for example, it can be deployed, audited. Someone, Ibris, for example, could, like, they picked up the Harmony bounty. They could pick up one of the other chains that has decided. I've been saying Luna. Let's say Luna, and deploy on that aspect on the Cosmos SDK they use. And all of a sudden, we could create that bridge without and utilize it, as long as adoption is then that token is adopted into the protocols. It becomes useful. So I think this portion where it doesn't require those key people to build out, anyone can kind of build a smart contract and following what needs to be done is a cool call out as well. Great breakdown, Icongraph. I come back to, I love the fact that I had this in my head. Well, why does do people care? But once there's an arbitrage opportunity, and this has been the case, and a good one to call out is this GBTC. I don't know if people realize the story there. For the entire last year, people were paying a huge premium of to acquire that BTC, and later on a huge arbitrage opportunity got figured out because the premium was 50% over, and while that arbitrage took 6 months to play out per whoever was doing it, a lot of more people caught on to that and just started capitalize on such an opportunity, and that was considered a long game in the arbitrage opportunity game. So over here, where instantly people can create and price and bank profits is unique, and the best part is, as you know, where that ICX goes and eventually what happens to it, which reverses the trend of inflation. I love that. So great stuff. I think that's about it. I think very much own balance, and it was good to spend a bit more time on BTP. It is kind of a big deal, and I know we're all eagerly awaiting when Icon 2.0 launches. That data migration can't happen soon enough, but it is a painstakingly slow process, so I'm sure we'll get more updates on that soon. Graf, any closing words?
No, I don't think so. As we've been saying, plenty of exciting months ahead. I guess one of the other things to call out is, they kind of asked, when does BTP launch? Scott basically said probably, a couple weeks after Icon 2.0. So we still have an exact, as you were alluding to, the exact Icon 2.0 date. All it is waiting on that migration though. So, if 2.0 is able to launch, say in early August or something like that, we could see BTP activity starting in mid to late August. So, it's coming up right around the corner here, assuming my estimates are right. So certainly a lot to get excited about.
Agree. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening. And if you have comments or anything, please add them into your YouTube and or Twitter or Reddit, everywhere we post it, and we'll try to answer them. But as always, share, like, subscribe, and thank you for taking the time to listen to our podcast. And always remember, everything we share is not financial advice. It is just conversations and the research we are doing. We're sharing our thoughts and views with everyone. So once again, thanks all. Take care.
See ya.